Welcome to We Learn, Virtual Learning Network. This is session number 3rd of the subject Modern Indian Political Thought, and the chapter is Introduction to the Ideology of Socio-Political Reform in 19th Century in India. Let's see the topics to be covered. Introduction, circumstances leading to the social reform movement, broad contours of the social reform ideology, religious reforms, social reforms, political liberalism, economic nationalism, and the welfare state idea. Introduction. The dominant feature of socio-political thought in colonial India were liberalism and nationalism. The liberal phase was characterized by attempts to rationalize and democratize the social and religious institutions. If it focused primarily on religious reform, it was only because of the belief that unless religion was first freed from dogma and superstition, unless the people discarded their age-old practices like sati, untouchability, and other caste discrimination sanctified by religion, there was no hope for social progress and social change. Unless the evil practices which sati, untouchability, child marriage, and other superstition and religious practices and religious superstitions which were there, unless they were not removed, there was no hope for social change and social progress. And liberal phase, liberalism was focusing on democratization, on giving freedom to people, and freeing religious and social institutions. And nationalism focused on state, on nation. And liberal phase was characterized by rationalization, democratization, and freeing religious and social institutions from superstitions and dogmas. Circumstances leading to the social reform movement. The Indian society in the 18th century was under the influence of several caste practices. Taboo on interdining and marriage and notion of pollution were some of them. The orthodox considered these caste rigidities and taboos as divinely ordained and denigrated or condemned all attempts at change or progress. Next to the lot of the lower caste, the position of women was particularly hard in 18th century India. The social reform movement of the 19th century was partly a response to the Western impact on a traditional society and to come to terms with the colonial challenge posed by the colonial presence. So, in Indian society in 18th century, a lot of caste practices were there, like intercaste marriage or interdining, that was considered a sin. The orthodox considered these caste rigidities and taboos as not attempting to change or progress. And then the woman's condition, the condition of the woman was pathetic. They were not allowed to move out of their houses, they were not allowed to have education, to have freedom, even they were not allowed to go out to have education and to educate themselves or for employment. And the social reform movement of the 19th century was partly a response to the Western impact on traditional society and to come to terms with the colonial challenge that was posed by the colonial presence. Whatever reform movement, whatever social reform movement occurred in 19th century, that was a response to the Western impact, whatever the impact of Western people, the Western ideologies, the Western ideas occurred on a traditional society. The social reform movement focused on that to reform the society for the better and for the good of the people concerned, and also for the good of to improvise the condition and situation of the women. Broad contours of the social reform ideology. In this section, we turn our attention to the common strands of thought of the social reformers of the 19th century. Revival versus reform. To revive the society, to reform the society of the evils which were present in the society. The idea of change and progress, to progress the society, to change, to bring in social change which was positive, to bring in social order which was positive and which was progressive. Individual as the center of all things, to give respect to the individual, to give freedom to the individual, as individual was the center of all the things. Individual was a being, was a free being. It focused on the individual as the center, as the main part. Must social reform precede political reform? So social reform should come first, then the political reform. Methods of social reform. What were the methodologies which were to be adopted for social reform? Revival versus reform. It is often debated whether the reformers were or were not revivalists. They were in a sense both reformers and revivalists. They wanted to revive the best in our past and at the same time discard or reform the prevailing inhuman and irrational customs. The revivalists, they wanted to reform the society and to end the inhuman and irrational customs and superstitious practices which occurred in the society at that time, and they wanted to bring in the best practices and to revive the society for social change and social order. Ridiculing those who wanted to blindly return to the past, Renardet queried, "When we want to revive our institutions and customs, what particular period of history is to be taken as old?" The reformers did not altogether discard the past and did not mind involving some of the traditions from the past. The traditions which were good, the traditions which were focused on change, on positive change and progressiveness, they did not mind involving those traditions from the past. But the traditions which were superstitious, which was negative and which was hard to take to, they emphasized on not taking those traditions and ideologies. But they were not revivalists in the sense that they glorified everything that existed in an imaginary golden age. They did not focus on glorifying everything. They were not revivalists in the sense that they glorified everything that existed in the past age. They did not see the past age as a golden age. They saw that lot of harm, lot of inhuman practices were there which needs to be removed, and the good practices needs to be incorporated. The idea of change and progress. The reformers believed in the law of evolution, of change and progress. They were critical of the Hindu doctrine of karma or rebirth, according to which our present plight was attributed to our past lives or deeds, karma, and the notion of Maya or illusoriness of the material world, because such beliefs caused the people to passively accept life and destroyed creativity. The reformers believed in progress. The reformers believed in change and progress. They did not believe in the notion of rebirth or the doctrine of karma, which focused on the deeds or the past lives to say that Maya or illusoriness of the material world, because such beliefs did not cause people to accept life. They only destroyed life and creativity. So the reformers, they believed in progress, social change and social order, rather than the principles of rebirth or the present plight or the past lives or deeds of the people. In fact, Gopal Krishna Gokhale considered progress to be one of the revolutionary ideas that had come to us from the West. So it was one of the revolutionary ideas that had come to us from the West. So it was a positive idea which helped people or which made the people to grow, and which was the reason for the social order and social justice. A system that refused to change and adapt to new situations was destined to become a drag on society rather than serve to protect it or serve it. A system that refused to change or to have positive principles or to incorporate positive ideas and ideologies and to adapt to new situations was almost destined to become a drag on society, and it did not protect or serve the society. It only had negative notions, and it did not have any positive notions. So a system should be open to change and should be open to positive ideas and new situations, and they focused on progress and social order as well as social change. Individual as the center of all things. As the name suggests, the aim of social reform was to rediscover the individuals, to liberate his intellect and to make him or her once again free, creative and happy. The sense of human dignity must reassert itself. The reformers rejected the notion that a thing had to be done simply because an authority had enjoined it. A thing should be done only if our reason told us it was conducive to mankind's present well-being and comfort. A thing should be done only if reason of the mankind told, if rationality is there, if mankind's present well-being and comfort allows man to do it, and it focused on freedom of the individuals, creativity of the individuals, and happiness and the human dignity, and also to assert himself or herself. The reformers rejected the notion of any authority to be imposed on the individuals, because the individuals were free, the individuals were creative and happy, they're able to look after their own good. They did not require any sort of authority to be imposed on them. So individuals were free, individuals were creative, and they were happy. So individual is the main thing, individual is the end, not the route to achieve the things. In other words, they rejected the principle of medieval organization based on authority and instead pleaded for a reformed organization based on reason. So based on reason, based on logic, and based on rationalism, the individual is there, and they focused on these three principles rather than any other authority which was required. So it was not required. Individuals only required to be free, happy, creative, and also to change based upon the situation. Must social reform precede political reform? One question that was persistently raised during the era of reform and is being raised to this day was, must social reform necessarily precede other reforms? One school, best represented by the Parsi reformer from Bombay, Mulberry, was of the view that social reform must precede political reform. It means that social reform should take first, then the political reform. It means social changes had to be there first, then the political changes. The state, it was argued, is based on the family, and hence before trying to reform the state, a people with their homes debased, their women ignorant and superstitious, a people trammeled with all the old world prejudices and subject to cruel and inhuman customs, can never hope to enjoy or exercise high political privileges. So unless and until there is social reform, there is social order, the people freed, the women educated, the women employed, or the women with all the knowledge, that society, unless and until these things are there, cannot take progress or cannot exercise high political privileges. So when a society has to have or has to enjoy high political privileges, then the society should have people who are aware, who are knowledgeable, who are educated, and women educated, developed, their homes properly based, and no inhuman or in cruel customs of the people. Only then the society can progress, only then there can be political progress. So unless and until there is social progress, there cannot be political progress. So yes, social reform was the base and political reform was the pillar. Methods of social reform. The 19th century reformers looked towards the state for help in achieving social reform, though it would be wrong to say that the reformers were over-enthusiastic about legislation or considered it the sole method of reform. They were not over-enthusiastic about legislation or policy making to be considered for reform. As the great reformer of the age, Sayaji Rao, the Gaikwad of Baroda, put it, there appear to be two great methods of reform, legislation and persuasion. So persuasion and policy making were the two great methods of reform and social change. Of these, the simpler and swifter is legislation, but on the other hand, it can only deal with particular evils and its effects are less permanent and thorough. Swifter and the most faster is the method of legislation, but it can only deal with particular evils and its effects are not very thorough. It can only remove particular evils and not all the evils, and its effects are less permanent and less thorough. Religious reforms. The 19th century attempt at religious reform had two aspects. The first sought to remove idolatry and religious superstitions, and the second to present a theistic ideal. The attack on idolatry and superstitions. The early social reformers adopted almost an iconoclastic attitude towards idol worship and polytheism. They did not like the idea of idol worship and polytheism, where a person had more than two wives, and the religious superstitions. The endeavor of the Brahmo Samaj, for instance, was to remove from Hinduism all idolatrous practices. They considered the proliferation of gods and goddesses as later development unknown to Vedic age. So they did not like they attacked the idea of idol worship and other religious superstitions which were present in the society. They only saw this as a fake thing which was making society more ignorant, and it was making society full of evils, full of religious evils. The new theistic ideal. 19th century religious reform movement not only repudiated polytheism but more importantly stressed the theistic tendencies in Hinduism, means to believe in God. Raja Ram Mohan Roy made common cause with Christian and Muslim Unitarianism. He thus opposed the Christian doctrine of Trinity, arguing that it was erroneous to conceive of God and His Son and the Holy Spirit as if they were three distinct entities. God, His Son and the Holy Spirit were one. They were not three distinct entities, they were one. And they made people to believe in God, not to do idol worship. So to develop theistic ideals and values in the humans. Social reforms. There were two broad areas which appeared to be the utmost concern to them: attack on the caste system. They firstly argued that caste was not part of the pristine and pure religion but a subsequent unhealthy development. Caste was an unhealthy practice which was prevalent in the system in that century. Raja Ram Mohan Roy, for instance, quoted from the Mahanirvana Tantra to show that caste was not a barrier to marriage nor essential to the organization of society. Secondly, the reformers used rational arguments to show that caste was doing more harm than good and that caste was not promoting the political interest of the Hindus. Caste system was doing more harm to the individuals than the good. It only proved as an obstacle to the development of the humans and for the development of the society and to bring in change in social order. Education and upliftment of women. The 19th century Western educated reformers were profoundly moved by the plight of Indian women. The most pernicious custom of that century was sati, and the Bengali reformers naturally concentrated on its abolition. Officially, the British administration was hesitant to interfere, particularly after the annexation of Peshwa's kingdom. It was only in 1812 and 1817 that the British administration sent positive instructions enjoining preventive measures such as no woman should be forcibly dragged to the pyre against her will or be forced to commit sati when pregnant or minor. So the woman should not be forced to the pyre of her husband's dead body against her will, and there should be abolition of the practice of sati, which was only making the society full of evils and full of superstitions. So education was the main motive of the reform movement and the upliftment of women, to abolish the wrong, the negative and the obstacles and the wrong superstitious practices which were prevalent at that time, to make the women educated and for their upliftment. Political liberalism, freedom, law and reason. To quote Ranade, freedom means being responsible for the voice of God in us. Liberals did not understand liberty to mean freedom to seek any object of desire. Rather, they understood it as a freedom to follow out higher nature, moral self, by willingly discarding passions and desires of the lower order. So liberals felt that one need not to take passions and desires of the lower order or to seek any object of desire. Rather, man was free to exercise his or her higher nature, moral self, moral being, and to also have freedom, to also have reason, logic. They regarded state and society as meaningful only because they contributed to the development of such moral freedom. So state and society were meaningful because they contributed for the development of moral freedom, to make the individuals free and to give them moral values. So law and state was required to make the individuals and to give to give freedom to the individuals and to give them proper reason. Constitutionalism and representative government. Government should be by laws and not arbitrary. It should be decentralized. The view of the reformers stemmed from their study of the philosophy of John Stuart Mill, who wanted government itself to assume responsibility for exploring avenues for increased participation of the people as a means to their political education. So, participation of the people was required for their education, and also government should not be by arbitrary. It should be by laws. It should be by proper system, and it should be decentralized. The power should be decentralized and not focused on only one thing. Gokhale testified before the Royal Commission on Decentralization. Thus, the car of administration should not merely roll over people's bodies. They must themselves be permitted to pull at the ropes. Economic nationalism and the welfare state idea. The 19th century liberals had also developed a powerful critique of British economic policy and drew up plans for economic reconstruction based on state intervention. Critics like Ramesh Dutt clearly perceived how the British policy of developing Indian markets for the advancement of their own industries was proving disastrous for the country. Liberals had also been a powerful critique of British economic policy and also drew up plans for economic reconstruction based upon state intervention. When the state would intervene, when the state would come, only then the economic reconstruction can take place. When the state would take out policies and ideologies which were favoring the country, only then the economic reconstruction was possible. And they also criticized the British policy of developing Indian markets for their own development and for their own advancement, which was also proving disastrous for the country. To not follow British policy but to follow the own policy of the state. The British policy resulted not only in destroying Indian urban handicrafts but also forced the urban unemployed artisans to go back to villages, which in turn increased the pressure on Indian agriculture, resulting in further subdivision of land, growth of unproductive debt. So the British policy was disastrous for the country. It resulted in Indian urban handicrafts to be destroyed and also making the unemployed artisans to go back to villages, which further proved more debt on the agriculture and also increased pressure on the Indian agriculture. So the British policy should not be followed according to the liberals, and the state should intervene and the state should come to restore the policy of the state. So it was basically on the abolition of superstitions and the abolition of wrong caste practices, and to bring in social order and social change, and for state intervention. So that's all we have for you in this session. These are some of the questions. You have to do it yourself. Question number 1. Distinguish between revival and reform. In what way were the social reformers also revivalists? Question number 2. In what sense can the Indian liberals be credited with having evolved the concept of welfare state? Thank you. Happy learning. We learning.